The first Arab country has participated in airstrikes on Yemen to protect Tel Aviv, as Israeli defense systems announced the interception of a Houthi missile targeting a United States warship. In a coordinated military effort, Saudi Arabia and the UAE are reportedly informing Tel Aviv of any detected Yemeni missile launches minutes before they reach their targets. Global airlines are withdrawing from Ben Gurion Airport following Houthi threats, and a leaked video reveals vulnerabilities in Israeli and American air defense systems against Houthi missiles. In response, Washington has deployed a nuclear aircraft carrier to the Red Sea, but the Houthis claim that sending a second carrier proves the failure of the first. Meanwhile, the United States is attempting to entice Yemen with an unexpected deal, but the Houthis mock Trump's statements. The Palestinian movement has shown flexibility in negotiations, while families of hostages are calling for mass protests against Netanyahu. Meanwhile, war has reignited on the Lebanese front. The commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guard has declared that they are prepared for all scenarios as the conflict expands. The Houthis are escalating their operations beyond targeting Israeli ships in the Red Sea. After neutralizing the port of Eilat, they are now aiming to disable the vital Ben Gurion Airport. Tel Aviv, in coordination with the United States, has launched extensive airstrikes against the Houthis. This follows an attack by Ansar Allah, the Houthis, on Ben Gurion Airport with a Palestine II hypersonic missile. Reuters has also reported that the Houthis launched a heavy assault on the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman and its battle group, marking the fifth such attack in a single week. Sanaa has warned international airlines against using Ben Gurion Airport, stating that it is no longer safe for air traffic. According to an official statement by Houthi military spokesperson Yahya Sari, the response from major powers and airlines has been swift. Israeli newspaper Yedioth Aharonoth reports that the U.S. State Department has issued a travel warning for Tel Aviv and the West Bank due to deteriorating security conditions and the possibility of renewed missile and drone attacks. In response to the Houthi threats, several international airlines have adjusted their flight schedules to Ben Gurion Airport. The airport's official website indicates that 100 out of 120 scheduled flights are now at risk of cancellation, as reported by Reuters. Amid growing concerns, Tel Aviv has engaged in intensive negotiations to prevent the closure of Ben Gurion Airport. Sources in Jerusalem indicate that Israel's Civil Aviation Authority and the Ministry of Transport are holding secret discussions to manage the crisis, especially following 4 additional Houthi attacks on the airport in the past 2 days. Tel Aviv fears that the continued threats could lead to significant disruptions in flight schedules, which would be a major blow since Ben Gurion is the country's primary air gateway. In a notable development, Israeli sources report that air defenses intercepted a ballistic missile over the Red Sea, while another missile targeted a U.S. vessel in the northern Red Sea. These sources confirm that the missile was aimed at U.S. warships, not Tel Aviv. Meanwhile, loud explosions were heard in the Red Sea, with shockwaves reaching Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. At the same time, U.S. forces carried out 4 airstrikes on Al-Hudaydah International Airport, causing material damage. U.S. aircraft have been heavily patrolling Hajjah and Amran provinces, and shortly before the strikes, a U.S. Poseidon 8 reconnaissance plane, accompanied by an F-16 fighter jet believed to belong to the Bahraini Air Force, was spotted heading toward Yemen via the Red Sea. Bahrain is a participant in the Operation Prosperity Guardian coalition. The Washington Post reports that the USS Carl Vinson, a U.S. nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, has set sail for the Red Sea to reinforce strikes against the Houthis. Additionally, sources indicate that the defense network in the Gulf and Saudi Arabia allows Tel Aviv to detect any missile launch from Yemen within 2 minutes. The first missile detected yesterday was reported 1 minute after launch at 5:44 a.m. Jerusalem time, with Israeli systems identifying it 3 minutes later. Israel's energy minister confirmed full coordination with the US and all its Middle Eastern bases regarding missile detection. He blamed Iran for the regional escalation and supported Trump's aggressive stance against the Houthis, calling it unprecedented. On the other hand, Abdul-Malik al-Houthi, leader of Ansar Allah, stated that the US decision to send a second aircraft carrier to the Red Sea is proof of the first carrier's failure. He argued that Washington historically relied on a single carrier to threaten great powers, but now requires multiple carriers to confront Yemen, exposing its weakness. Saudi and Israeli sources report that air defences intercepted a Yemeni missile heading toward Tel Aviv, which fell in western Saudi Arabia before entering Israeli airspace. Saudi sources claim that US air defences based in the Red Sea shot down the missile as it crossed Saudi territory. However, Saudi media later circulated footage allegedly showing the missile successfully reaching Tel Aviv despite the activation of Israeli and American defense systems, causing a massive explosion and plumes of dust in a fortified area. Meanwhile, Sanaa has carried out its third attack on Ben Gurion Airport within 48 hours. In response, the United States has offered the Houthis economic relief payment of controlled areas and a share of oil revenues as part of a proposed deal. In exchange for halting attacks on Israeli ships in the Red Sea, the offer also reportedly included abandoning the Gaza issue. However, Sanaa rejected the United States proposal for the third time, stating that halting attacks is conditional on ending the war on Gaza, lifting the blockade, and allowing humanitarian aid to enter. Meanwhile, a senior official in Sanaa's government mocked President Donald Trump's threats regarding the military operations carried out by Sanaa's forces against Tel Aviv and its affiliated ships. He remarked, "The unjust will always be defeated." He further stated that fear and arrogance are pushing Washington into impossible wars of eradication, according to his statement reported by the BBC. From the raging Yemeni front to the latest developments on the Palestinian scene, US Envoy Steve Witko emphasized that the conflict with the Palestinian movement could be resolved through dialogue. He noted that the movement is not as ideologically rigid as it is often portrayed, but rather seeks alternatives and aspires to live. Witko added that ongoing negotiations might lead to an end to attacks on Gaza and potentially resolve the conflict. However, he pointed out that the Israeli government's motivations regarding the war and the exchange of hostages remain unclear, criticizing Netanyahu's focus on the battle more than on the captives. He also asserted that Netanyahu has weakened the Palestinian movement, claiming it is no longer the organization it once was. Meanwhile, Germany, France and Britain have called for an immediate return to a ceasefire in Gaza, arguing that it is the only viable path to lasting peace and a two-state solution. On another front, the families of Israeli hostages in Gaza have escalated their protests, accusing Netanyahu of endangering their loved ones and opening the gates of hell on them. They urged Israeli society to take to the streets and pressure the government. The families also made a direct appeal to US President Donald Trump, stressing that the top priority should be securing the release of the captives. From the situation in Gaza to the escalating Lebanese-Israeli front, the ceasefire agreement is on the verge of collapse, and the spectre of war is looming again. Lebanese factions have denied any involvement in the missile launches from southern Lebanon, stating that Israeli accusations are merely a pretext to continue their aggression against Lebanon despite the ceasefire agreement. The factions reaffirmed their commitment to the agreement and their support for the Lebanese state in facing the escalation. Conversely, Lebanon's defense minister rejected any return to hostilities, asserting that there are efforts to undermine the state's attempts to maintain security. He also called on the countries mediating the ceasefire to pressure Tel Aviv into stopping its violations. Meanwhile, Israeli military radio quoted military sources saying the identity of the party responsible for launching the rockets from Lebanon remains uncertain, describing it as a serious breach of the ceasefire understandings. In response, the Israeli army carried out more than 60 airstrikes on southern Lebanon, targeting sites suspected of being linked to Lebanese factions, following Netanyahu's order to launch a second wave of cross-border attacks. Netanyahu's office announced that the strikes were in retaliation for the rockets fired at Tel Aviv, emphasizing that the Lebanese government bears full responsibility for everything occurring within its borders. From Beirut to the escalating US-Iranian front, the Pentagon spokesman confirmed that the United States does not deny Iran's possession of plasma weapon technology, noting that NASA satellites have detected it. Meanwhile, the CIA has reportedly been trying to understand it over the past 3 years. In a related development, the commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Navy announced that offensive units in the Strait of Hormuz are fully prepared, warning of an unpredictable response if a battle erupts. He also vowed to send the enemy to the depths of hell if any reckless action is taken, according to his statement. Add a closing message urging viewers to follow our channel for future clips and support us by subscribing, liking and commenting.